What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show here on Sherdog.com. And I'm absolutely delighted to be joined today by my colleague Ian O'Neill from over on SevereMMA.com to talk a little bit about probably two of the biggest stars, if not the two biggest stars in our sport today, Conor McGregor and Jon Jones. Now we both know that both of them are coming back. You know, Conor McGregor doesn't have a date yet per se, but he's on his way back. He'll be fighting Michael Chandler, August, September type of date after TUF. And Jon Jones is fighting here not too far away at one of the upcoming pay-per-views against Ciryl Gane for the heavyweight title. And I think it's interesting because I saw a few polls out on Twitter and bits of discussion. Who you most looking forward to? Why are you looking forward to it? And I saw a lot of people like saying McGregor, and then a lot of other people kind of saying, what are you talking about? We have, you know, this star against an actual great fighter, which, and I'm not saying that, but I saw some people saying that. So I kind of want to break down all of that and talk through all of those different sides in terms of the stardom, in terms of the quality, in terms of how much we're looking forward to it. No one do it better than Ian to do here with me, having watched MMA back through the days of Jon Jones coming up and obviously covered it as well with Conor McGregor covering it in Ireland and in North America as well. So probably no one better to actually talk us through this. First question, Ian, who are you most looking forward to seeing coming back? Not the build-up, not the TUF, not any press conference or anything like that. When they step into the cage, Conor McGregor when he's fighting Chandler, or Jon Jones when he's fighting Ciryl Gane?
I've been thinking about this for the last couple of days as well. Like, I feel right now as it stands, I am kind of looking forward a little bit more to Jon Jones because it's within touching distance. I feel, you know, on the build-up to the Alexander Volkanovski and Islam Makhachev, we were talking about greatness on both sides of the spectrum. And I feel that with Jon Jones's move up to the heavyweight division and the fact that he's going to be taking on Ciryl Gane, it's a huge test, but it's also a chance for greatness. And me watching along for many years, it's something that I enjoy generally in sports is being able... I feel that we're a small part of it as spectators, as people who are covering the sport, as fans. And you know, that's why I always had a stickler for watching fights live and just being live in the moment and witnessing history live. And I feel that that's the thing that's making me kind of look forward to Jon Jones's kind of return more so right now than Conor McGregor's. Now, this is before TUF happens. This is before Conor actually comes back on the scene because, you know, we haven't seen too much of Conor really. He hasn't been too many interviews, bar the one with yourself. It was one of the many few interviews he probably did last year, really. So, you know, we're going to be going with Conor McGregor from nothing to everything when we're going to see him each and every week. And then, you know, we'll probably see some interviews on the build up to the fight and then obviously the pre-fight media and the fight itself. So, but for me right now, Jon Jones and Ciryl Gane is just a month away. I'm highly anticipating, as like you said, after watching Jon Jones the whole way throughout his career, this is a really pinnacle moment in his career. And like I said, inside the octagon, a chance for greatness.
That's the correct answer for me. And I go, this is a game of opinions, but what you said there is the correct answer because this is actually a question that goes away in a month's time. You know, we're no longer going to have to be who you're most looking forward to seeing coming back because Jon Jones, hopefully, fingers crossed, touch wood, will have come back, will have fought, will have either won or lost or drawn or whatever it might have been. And then it'll be moving on to what the next step is for Jon Jones. And then we're looking forward to the comeback of Conor McGregor. So I suppose it's a short-term question, but still I think valid because listen to you speaking there, listen to a lot of people speaking about this. The one word that keeps coming up with Jon Jones and Conor McGregor and why they're put together. Because as I said, this is a temporary question. This isn't a question that'll be asked in 5 weeks' time because, you know, exactly what I said. Intrigue. It's the level of intrigue with both of them that makes this special because we're intrigued to see Conor McGregor. I'm looking at his record here up on Sherdog.com /Conor McGregor 29688. So that's the number fighter Conor McGregor is at Sherdog. Last two fights, Dustin Poirier lost. Obviously, the injury, Dr. Stoppage in the last one. Then Cowboy Cerrone. And then it was Khabib Nurmagomedov. In 2018, that's 5 years ago. By the time he fights again, it will literally almost be 5 years, because it's people are saying August, September, October sort of time, and it was October he fought Habib Nurmagomedov. It was 2 years before that, in 2016 November, when he fought Eddie Alvarez at the end of that 11-month stretch. The intrigue here with McGregor is to see if there's any way he can recapture it or take a step to recapturing his past glories. And we talked about it now a couple of times. Everyone's going to talk about it over the next couple of months. I was on with John Anik and Kenny Florian the other day, and the point I made about McGregor and the level of intrigue is because he has this 3-month stint in Tough, because he has a camp before the fight. He has 6, 7, 8 months, whatever it's going to be. As I said, the date is unsure yet, to prepare for this fight. And if he can get like his mind back on fighting, and he's in there every single day with guys on the mats talking about fighting, preparing himself mentally as much as anything else, getting his head back in the game, which is not me talking about that. He's actually said that himself. He said full immersion in that Instagram post he put out there. That is a massive thing. And you look at the level of intrigue for Jon Jones, it's a similar sort of thing. Like, you look at Jon Jones' record, 27944 in Sherdog. 2020 was the last time he fought, February. So it's over 3 years since Jon Jones fought. And before that, you know, we look back to 2018, he fought twice in 2019, once in 2018, once in 2017, once in 2016, once in 2015, once in 2014. It was 2013, 10 years ago, a decade before 2019, where he had 2 fights in the same year. Like, the level of intrigue to see if Jon Jones still has it. The youngest UFC champion of all time, he's 35 years of age now. He's 36 this year. He's no longer a young whippersnapper. And, you know, when they start young, and, you know, Jon Jones hasn't taken it easy throughout his career, it's tougher to hold that up. So the level of intrigue in that, to see if Jon Jones can reach past glories, is absolutely massive. And look, we'll go through both of them here in a second, I suppose, separately. But to put them together, like, it is more than, you know, we argue over everything, I suppose, in MMA. But God Almighty, we're lucky to have this in the few, you know, in the 6 or 7 months upcoming, the intrigue of 2 of the most successful and best fighters we've ever seen in MMA coming back in.
Absolutely. And you know, it's the trajectory of both of these guys, myself and yourself, Sean, have been lucky to witness it from the very early stages on both sides. Obviously, look at with Conor, following him on the Irish scene and seeing his rise there first, and then in Europe, and then on the world stage. You know, obviously I can't say I watched Jon Jones from the very start, but I remember him making his UFC debut. I remember him fighting Stephen Bonner early days at UFC 100, or maybe that was Jake O'Brien at 100, actually. But, you know, the point is, you know, we've been a part of their rise and their story, and we've seen it firsthand. I think that may make it a little bit more special for us, that maybe somebody who only started watching mixed martial arts maybe after Conor, or maybe someone who started watching mixed martial arts that hasn't even seen Jon Jones compete inside the octagon yet, because he's been away for so long. And it's the intrigue of all the speculation that has been going on, all those answers, all that speculation is going to be answered when he does step in there in a couple of weeks' time. What were the reasons for his poor or less than average performances against the likes of Dominic Reyes and Santos and the likes towards the end of his tenure in light heavyweight division? To me, I feel it was a lack of motivation. I feel it was a lack of fear. And I feel that those two things are very dangerous not to have going into a fight. When you're not motivated to go training, when you're not afraid that if you don't go training or if you don't prepare to your highest level, that you're not going to be able to win that fight. Well, he obviously didn't feel that enough. And I feel that kind of transcribed into his last couple of performances. That wasn't there in the early stages, Sean. That wasn't there when we first started watching him. And I think, you know, that's probably the Jon Jones we all want to remember. And that's probably him in his prime, making that rise and going through all the absolute killer's road that he went through, and becoming champion at just 23 years of age. It's crazy. It hasn't been close to being touched since he's done it. And I think we'd be fooling ourselves with Jon to think that he is going to get back to that level, because it's just not, like you said, his age, he's moving up in weight, and he simply has not been competing and training enough as well. It's as simple as that. It's kind of, you need to be in there fighting on a yearly basis. Like I was amazed to hear you say that he had only fought once every year, even back in the mid kind of teens there, and then 2012, 13, 14 as well, which is crazy. But at a time, Jon is going to find out that mixed martial arts has passed him by, and we're going to find out if it has, and he's moved up to the heavyweight and fighting a guy like Ciryl Gane as well.
It's so true, like, because that's the other part of it, the intrigue of them coming back, but also like the thought in your head that can McGregor or Jones rediscover past glories, like, or will what they do rediscover be good enough to win their upcoming fights, because they were so good in one point. But you make a great point there, and I have to echo it about, like, people not experiencing Jon Jones on his way up, and maybe that's why they aren't looking forward to it as much as, say, we are. But it's the same, like when Fedor fought there a couple of weeks ago, like, we experienced probably the latter end of Fedor's maybe Pride career, or when he came to the States and stuff like that. Because let's be honest, we were in Ireland, we were a little bit younger, we weren't 1993, you know, when the UFC started, we were 5 years of age. So it's very hard in Ireland when you're 12, 13, 14, 15 to be watching Fedor on the way up. Like, so the appreciation that I'd have or you'd have is not the same as the appreciation a Josh Gross would have, or a Damon Martin maybe, or whoever, who was watching the fights at the time. And that's nothing against us, and it's nothing against the newer fans who don't have that appreciation of Jon Jones. But our responsibility maybe is to come on and tell them, now, if you don't want to appreciate Jon Jones, or you don't want to appreciate Conor McGregor for things that have happened outside the cage, fair enough. Or for the fact that they haven't been around and they haven't been fighting, fair enough. That's absolutely your prerogative. But we're talking here on in the cage. I literally, when I asked you the question to start, we talking about in the cage, and I think that is a big thing. But like, just from my point of view, and I know you'll echo this as well, Ian, you couldn't be more intrigued almost by a fighter than Jon Jones to see him coming back based on what he has done in the past. Because as you said, it was brilliance up until a point, and then it was like, oh my God, is he kind of losing it? To see where he is now is such a massive thing, because you see it in all sports, right? You know, I'm sure the New England Patriots, when they were winning all those Super Bowls, there was probably a thought in fans' minds after they won, like, you know, 3 out of 4 or whatever it might have been, that, oh, will we let it slip this year? We still have a great team, we still have a great quarterback, we still have a great coach. I know you had it with Kilkenny, I have it with Limerick now in the hurling, we had it with Manchester United back in the day as well. I'm sure it's the same in all sports. Like, you don't question their greatness, you just question where they are right now and what the next step has been. And let's take Jon Jones first, and we'll circle back, I suppose, to Conor McGregor. And if we're not necessarily to predict how he's going to come back or how it's going to look or anything like that, but I think the big turning point for Jon Jones in the last 3 years, when there was all this talk of he's going to heavyweight, he's going to fight Francis Ngannou, he's going to have all this, all this money for the massive heavyweight jump, and then they couldn't come to terms. Jon couldn't come to terms. Francis couldn't come to terms. Then Jon came to terms with Francis, couldn't come to terms. Then he was supposed to fight Stipe. I know for a fact that fight was not necessarily scheduled to happen last year, but it's probably, 5-6 months ago. So it's a long time for him to be out. But now he's finally coming back. The turning point I just mentioned there, I think that was when he left Greg Jackson's gym, when he went and trained with Henry Cejudo. And it's not necessarily the change in the gym, but I want to get your thoughts on this, because my thought is that Jon Jones now has something to prove. Jon Jones has fallen out with his ex-gym. He, in a way, feels inside him, I think, that a lot of people think that it was Greg Jackson and Mike Winkeljohn that were to thank for him being such a great fighter. And he wants to prove now that he can be a world champion. He can be the best fighter in the world at another place, at another gym, by himself. Let's put it that way. I think that's a massive motivation for someone like Jon Jones, who was finding it, as you said, maybe finding it hard to find that motivation to come up against guys like this. Plus now he's up in weight. Plus now he's one of the best fighters in the world in Ciryl Gane. Do you get that same sort of read from Jon Jones, or do you think that could be a struggle again coming in here, even though it is, he is faced with all those massive tests?
No, I definitely think it is a factor here. And you know what? I had speculated for a long time where people said, he is past it. And it was a fair assessment too. I honestly thought it was that lack of fire, that lack of spark in the preparation. And I think that that's going to be back because, you're not going to get away with the same mistakes that he was making in the heavyweight division in these last couple of fights. Also, he said it, and I believe he had a quick interview after the announcement of the fight with John Morgan where he said that, he didn't have that fear, and he feels that he has a bit more of a purpose and a bit more of a meaning to kind of basically, without question, probably label himself the greatest fighter of all time. But I truly think that Jon Jones has been walking around this earth for quite some time, quite some years now, thinking that he is already the greatest, and he kind of alludes to that from time to time. But ego is a hell of a thing, Sean. And Jon Jones tries to portray this nice guy, but he's an egomaniac, and you kind of have to be in certain ways. We're talking about greatness here. Greatness has many ingredients, and ego is quite a big ingredient in greatness, if you ask me. But for me, I think changing camps is going to spark him. Proving people wrong also kind of gets him motivated too. But I also look a little bit deeper at the move, and you're going to a kind of a technician in wrestling like Henry Cejudo. And I'm thinking he's laying out the roadmap here for what he wants to do. Like, he's talking to an Olympic level wrestler. He's getting some very good advice from Henry Cejudo. Henry Cejudo talks a lot of crazy stuff. He's a bit goofy, but I can guarantee you as well, and has proved that time and time again. So I think that's an excellent move for Jon Jones to kind of get himself into that environment. And, even talking about it right now, like it's just getting me so excited with anticipation and wonder to see. And I really think on the day after that he fights Ciryl Gane that people are going to be calling him the greatest fighter of all time, because I honestly feel that all the ducks are lining up perfectly for him. He's saying the right things, he's making the right moves, and he's slowly progressed into the heavyweight. He hasn't rushed it. We've seen, I think I may have been talking to maybe yourself or Harry at Severe MMA where we were talking about people moving up in weight too fast. Max Holloway, guilty of it against Dustin Poirier. I think Jon Jones, whilst he probably did not want to wait this long, has spent the time getting up to that weight properly, and obviously testing himself out in training to see what his cardio levels are like, what his movement is like, because it's a big adjustment that he's doing right now, moving up. And I think we're going to be surprised at the weight of him, but he said himself his body size or his body shape is not too much different at light heavyweight. So I think the move away from Jackson Wink to Henry Cejudo is a monster move, in my opinion.
100%. One thing I want to talk about as well with Jon Jones, and we'll get to it McGregor, and we'll move on to McGregor after this. I just wonder how much of a draw he will be, because we said it there about maybe some fans don't quite know who Jon Jones is, and there's a lot of fans who do. There's a lot of lapsed fans as well who might come back for Jon Jones. There might be a lot of Jon Jones fans who no longer watch MMA and might be in for him, but we see a lot recently. There's a lot of pandemic fans, and okay, a lot of them are, I'm sure, streaming and all of that and maybe not buying them. I wonder how much Jon Jones is going to draw for the UFC, because I think, it's the heavyweight title on the line. That does help him going up on all the intrigue we just spoke about. But if this comes out here and it draws, let's say 1 million buys, Jon Jones is back. If he wins, it's to the moon with Jon Jones. The UFC are going to be absolutely delighted. There's going to be big things coming. We'll wait and see. If Jon Jones comes in here and draws 500,000, I think it's a little bit different, and I'm interested to see how Dana White reacts, because Jon Jones is on good money now. That they want to protect this heavyweight championship, but also the heavyweight division with Francis Ngannou gone. I think that's a massive thing, and with McGregor as well. if we were to move on to him and look at McGregor as a draw, I think McGregor will draw hugely based on himself, based on the intrigue we just spoke about, and there's more assurity in that because we know everyone knows McGregor and he's still a big star. Plus, Chandler fight makes sense to a lot of people. We'll get to that in a second again. But I think the season of tough will definitely help, as you alluded to earlier on. People will buy into it. They'll see a lot of the trash talk. They'll see all of that. They'll believe McGregor is back because when you see Conor McGregor speak, you mentioned the interview I did with him. A lot of people were like, the real McGregor is back. And I think that drew a lot of people in to be like, because he said to me in that interview, I want to be back in the autumn, definitely before the end of the year. And now it's going to be almost the end of next year. So he needs to kind of buy back, I think, that appreciation, but that expectation as well. Jon Jones has the expectation now because we know he's coming back. The UFC, I think, are going to have to do a job as well to reintroduce him, to get him to be the big draw and to get all these boys in. I'm very interested to see if they can do it. With McGregor, it's almost built in the fact he's going on tough, and that's going to be done that way, even though he doesn't really need it. But with Jones, I think it's very, very interesting to see how that will work out. But let's talk more about Conor McGregor. First of all, I said I don't think the Michael Chandler fight is the one that makes the most sense. It makes sense in two ways. Michael Chandler is a highly ranked UFC fighter. He called him out. McGregor has said, yeah, I'll fight him, no problem. It makes sense from that point of view. And it also makes sense from the point of view that the UFC, as I said, about getting people to buy the cards, getting people to pay pay-per-views, they want to put on, at the top of a pay-per-view, either a championship fight or a big star against a highly ranked fighter. And that's exactly what we have here. Massive star McGregor, I think he's still ranked, against one of the top 5 or 6 ranked lightweights in the world, one of the best divisions in the world. So they have given that. For me, and I want to get your take on this, Ian, are they jumping over pounds to pick up pennies? Like, are they making 3 McGregor fights into one here? Are they making 4 McGregor fights into 2 by giving him too tough of a fight straight away? It would have been better to put him in there against Ferguson and then give him this. Would it be better to put him in there against Kevin Lee on his way back and then give him Chandler, or Michael, or Will Brooks on his way back and then build them up like that? Might be able to headline or whatever. Maybe it will, and maybe you could headline it. Take the hit maybe even on that one. Get a McGregor win. Everyone will see it on Sports Internal. And then you have another massive one to come. Or do you think they're doing it the right way by putting him right in there immediately?
I'm definitely along the lines of the thinking that you are with I would have loved to seen him matched against Tony, and the business side of things needs to be kind of thought about in this situation, and you're dead right in what you're saying, is that somebody like Conor McGregor, you can't just put him in there with some willy-nilly opponent. But you tell me that if they put Nathan Diaz versus Tony Ferguson as a pay-per-view last year, that they couldn't do Conor McGregor versus Tony Ferguson. There's a couple of things I feel that kind of got in the way of that Tony Ferguson fight. Obviously, what you said, Conor's obviously a victim of his own success and popularity. The fact that he's a big star per se in comparison to Jon Jones is that even when he's not fighting, his face is everywhere with his whiskey brand, with everything that's going on in the movies and everything. Jon Jones doesn't have that. So McGregor basically sells himself. He's his own entity when it comes to marketing at this stage, to be honest. But the Tony Ferguson fight, for me, on a competitive level, was the perfect fight for Conor. Tony's stubborn enough to stand and bang with him. Some would say Michael Chandler will be as well, but I think Michael Chandler showed a few chinks in the armor there against Dustin Poirier when he did decide to wrestle, probably at the worst moment ever that he could have decided to wrestle in his UFC tenure so far, because I believe he had Dustin Poirier very hurt at that stage when he dropped in. If Chandler does play the part here and does stand and bang with him, well, then that's going to play into McGregor's hands. And it's easy to say that before the fight. It's easy to kind of to allude that you're going to do it. But when you're in there and you're taking shots, it's a lot easier to make that decision to try and shoot for a takedown. Another thing that got in the way of Tony Ferguson fighting Conor McGregor was the fact that they probably had this master plan for McGregor to come on The Ultimate Fighter for quite some time. And I just don't think that Tony Ferguson is a guy that they could they could get good TV from, to be honest. Michael Chandler has this ability to turn it on, and he's going to come in with his motivational talk, and he's Mr. America per se, and McGregor is going to come in as this cheeky as he always is. And, I think from what we did see with McGregor and Uriah Faber the last time, that kind of over and back, it was good. It was, it got nasty at little times, but it never got nasty between Faber and McGregor. It was always playful, and I can kind of see that happening a little bit in this tough with shades of nastiness, because I think McGregor may lure him into a chat with this kindness and then come at him hard on the pre-fight.
That's what I think. Well, I even think he's going to lure him in on tough, and then he's got no disrespect, but I don't think Michael Chandler is exactly Albert Einstein or anything. I don't think he's as hard as her. And I think McGregor will prey on that. He will end up getting him mad. But do you know what's going to be very interesting? And I'm glad you said it there, because it's that Poirier fight. People have it in their minds now that Michael Chandler is just this go out there, stand and bang type of guy since he came to the UFC. People will go back and watch that fight again in the cold light of day before McGregor fight and see what he did there. He wrestled heavily twice, or tried to, in that fight. It was a very different Michael Chandler than the other fights he's had in the UFC. He was trying to get the big name win. He didn't manage to get it in the end, but there's no doubt in my mind. There is no doubt in my mind that he's going to go in there and try to wrestle Conor McGregor. And I spoke to John Kavanagh. The interview, it'll probably be out by the time this comes out, but he said, and I put it to him, which Michael Chandler do you think you'll see? Will you see the one that comes out and wrestles, or will you see the one that comes out all aggressive? And he said to me that either way, Conor McGregor is going to win. So you're not in McGregor camp, and maybe that's the start of it. But that they're confident. I just wonder, because look, we'll talk about the fight down the road, but how big of a part will tough play into this? Because sometimes, tough over the last few years, we haven't even thought about it. It's been an afterthought. But the thoughts here, right? The two biggest things we talked about here, the intrigue of McGregor coming in, right? We might see a bit of him in tough, see him training, see if he looks fit and sharp and all right. Not much probably, but a bit. We'll see if he can get under the skin of Chandler, something he really kind of hasn't been able to do in the last while, because, he lost and he was friends with Poirier, and then it was just all weird in the second fight against Poirier, the third fight, against Poirier, and the fight against Habib was all a bit weird as well. Maybe that'll be a little bit different as well. But now he also has that time to prepare for all of that as well. I wonder how, and look, it'll be all seen in front of everyone's face. How big of a part do you think that'll actually play in this? And all of that leading to it being the draw at the end as well.
It'll play a huge part, to be honest, because the fact that it's on ESPN, and it's not ESPN Plus, it's not anywhere, it's on the main ESPN channel in the States, that means it's going to get into a lot of homes, and there's going to be, the media frenzy that always surrounds anything that Conor McGregor does as well. It's it really is this, like I said before, this unique entity. Whenever he announces that he's going to fight, this tough thing is just going to explode. And I would imagine we're talking about guaranteed 1.5 million buys, if not touching on the 2 for this fight.
That's a lot. I was actually going to end it there and ask you what the prediction is, because my prediction wouldn't be as high for that now for McGregor Chandler. I don't think. Depends on the card as well, I suppose, if you put something else big on it. I think it'll be between 1 and 1 point. I think it'll be between 900,000 and 1.2. I'll put it that way.
I think he does under 1 million.
Maybe.
I think he's almost 1 million guaranteed.
We'll see, because it'll be interesting. Look, it'll be interesting to see when it's on, what's on around it as well, and all of that. I think for Jon Jones, then, I think it'll be between 6 and 8 for Jon Jones and Ciryl Gane, which is good, but also you probably want a bit more.
Yeah, he draws. Jon Jones is kind of steady even in between that 800,000, 650. What was the Cormier fight? Maybe 900,000, because it was such a heated rivalry.
And then the first Gustafsson one was very low. I think 350 or 400,000 or something. But, obviously all of those are reports. We don't get the actual numbers, I suppose. But yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting. But the thing, I suppose, to leave it on a positive note, we have these to look forward to. We have possible million buy pay-per-views in the States to look forward to. It feels like we haven't had that in a long time. it feels like everything at the moment. Okay, like there's some really, really good technical fights and all of that, and people talking about Usman and Edwards, and it's not the same in terms of intrigue, but in terms of quality as well. It might be the same or better in terms of quality, but the quality with the intrigue is massive. You can't question the quality of Chandler McGregor. You can't question the quality of Jones and Ciryl Gane. So it's absolutely brilliant to have that back and to have that to look forward to, because that's what MMA is all about. It's sports, but it's entertainment as well. When you throw us the entertainment on the lead up, you throw us the entertainment in the fight, and you throw us very, very good fighters. What have we to complain about? I can't wait. It's going to be really, really fun. We'll leave it there, Ian. Thank you very much for joining me. Follow him over on Twitter at O'Neill MMA. Subscribe to the Old Triangle, a great podcast that he does, and listen to all the other great stuff, the previous show over in Severe MMA as well. You'll find all of them on his Twitter. And we will leave it there. My name is Sean Sheehan for Sherdog.com. We'll see you all next time.